Episode 7 of the Amazing Digital Circus is finally out. Yes, I know, I'm 3 months late, and it's without a doubt the craziest one yet. In this video, I'm going to talk about some theories and details you might have missed in this episode. I'll start by giving you my opinion on the episode before getting into the most interesting points. First of all, this may be the best, most well-written episode of all Glitches shows combined. The way they build tension, and they answered almost all our questions about the C&A logo, about Kinger, about the creation of the digital circus, only to break it all down at the end. And then, when everyone was assimilating that everything was a lie, they reveal a massive piece of lore about Kane that is actually capable of controlling minds, and Scratch, the first abstraction. This episode was supposed to give answers, and yet, I have even more questions than before. The animation was peak as always. The only criticism I have of this episode is that I felt the story moved a little too quickly at the beginning. The episode had only started a few minutes earlier, and we'd already discovered who the mannequin was and that he'd found a way out. But seeing the ending, I understand why they did this. It allowed them to build tension throughout the episode, right up to the final twist. By the way, I haven't seen anyone mention it, but can we talk about Jax's room? I mean, it looks like a little girl's room. Anyway, let's talk about what actually happened in that episode. Actually, I have a theory. Everything that happened in this episode was actually real. I mean, there is no way that Kane could create all of this. How could he have imagined an NPC observing a circus member from afar for so long? How could he have invented the whole C&A story and Kinger being a developer of the circus? It's simply impossible. Furthermore, the way Abel talks about Kane is strange. In the other adventure created by Kane, the NPC worshipped him like a god, as in episode 2. But in this adventure, when Abel talks about Kane, his remarks are often belittling. Not in a mean way, but as if he were superior to Kane. He presents Kane as a victim. I don't think Kane would have let Abel talk about him like that. That's why I think Kane realized the circus members were about to escape and, in a panic, turned the whole situation into an adventure so they wouldn't know that there was actually a way to escape. Plus, the way Jax said, "You made me," after pressing the red button suggests that it was Kane who tricked him into doing it, which could be true since we now know that Kane can control their minds. This means that when he realized they were going to escape, Kane manipulated Jax into pressing the red button, which also caused his panic attack, to prevent them from escaping the circus. Unfortunately, we'll never know if all of this is true since Jax pressed the red button. But it does mean that, if all of this was true and if there really was a way to escape the circus, they're now trapped there forever because they pressed the red button. But that's just a theory. So for the rest of the video, let's assume that everything was just an adventure. One of the major revelations in this episode is that Kane can control minds, something I had already noticed in my prediction video for episode 7. So not only did he lie to the circus members by claiming he couldn't control them and by lying about their names, but, as Kinger revealed, it's also what caused the abstraction in the first place. By controlling their minds for too long, he drives them mad and plunges them into an existential crisis, because they no longer know what they're doing, which ultimately leads them to abstraction. So that means Kane is responsible for every abstraction. This can be seen with Jax, when Kane controlled his mind to make him vegan in episode 5, or to force him to press the red button in this episode, which caused him to have panic attacks and to almost abstract at the beginning of the episode. When Kinger realized that Kane was responsible for the abstractions, he remembered the very first abstraction, whose name is Scratch. You might be wondering, who is Scratch? Well, right from the first episode, we see characters who have already been abstracted, in the hallway where each circus members has their own room. We can make out portraits of characters crossed out with a red X on some doors, indicating that they have been abstracted. In 2024, one of the 3D artists who designed some of the doors posted an image on social media revealing that the yellow dog on one of them is named Scratch. The image of the hot dog in Abel's locket could be a reference to him, as Scratch appears in episode 4 at Spudsy's house, on a hot dog called Dobby Dog. Now that we know who Scratch is, I wonder what happened to them and why they were abstracted. I also wonder if we will see them again later, perhaps in a flashback, or if we will learn more about them. Another thing I want to talk is Kane's pictures. Even though it was all an adventure, I don't think Kane lied to Jax when they were dining at the restaurant. He seems very interested in these pictures, saying he'd like to have more information about this place, which clearly appears to be the C&A offices, so he can recreate it. He actually already tried to recreate it with the fake exit he created in episode 1. We already saw Kane looking at these pictures in episode 6, and I've already discussed this in another video, but I still have the same question. How did Kane get these photos of the C&A offices, which are in the real world, when he's an AI trapped in this game? And also, why are these pictures so important to him, and why does he want to recreate this place? Let's not forget that this is where Pomni, and probably all the other members of the circus, got themselves trapped in the circus. In episode 1, we see a computer with a VR headset, and when Pomni saw it, she stared at it as if she remembered this place. But we'll certainly learn more about these pictures and this location in episode 8, as we can see in the trailer released a few days ago. Now let's talk about the characters. The first one I want to discuss is Kinger. In my last video, I theorized that Kinger was one of the developers of the circus, and that theory turned out to be correct, or so I thought, until Kane revealed at the end that it was all an adventure. But can we really consider it was all a lie? After all, as I said, I don't believe Kane lied to Jax at the restaurant, so perhaps other things said in that episode are also true, like some of Abel's statements about Kinger. Maybe Kinger really is one of the developers of the circus after all. In any case, one thing is certain, Kinger knows a lot more about the circus than the others. This is evident when he recalls the very first abstraction at the circus and realizes it's entirely Kane's fault, meaning he witnessed it and has therefore been present since the beginning of the circus. It's also seen when Zubul tells him about their escape plan with Abel. He seemed confused, as if he knew something Zubul and the others don't. And when Pomni handed him an administrator's pass, he looked at it before reaching out to say something, but he lost his mind as he stepped out of his cushioned castle because of the light. I still wonder what he meant to say to Pomni. Did he want to tell her it was all fake and it was just an adventure? Or was it something else? Furthermore, Kane's attempt to keep him away from the adventure demonstrates that he knows Kinger knows a lot about the circus. That's why he wanted to keep him away. He was probably afraid Kinger would reveal at the others that it was fake. But what if Kinger knew too much about the circus? When he remembered what had happened to Scratch because of Kane, we can see that Kane panicked. So what if Kane is the one that caused Kinger to lose his mind, since we know he can control minds? Perhaps to prevent him from revealing how to escape the circus. We don't know how much Kinger knows about the circus, but if he really is a developer, he might know how to escape, and he might even be the key to the escape. The second character I want to talk about is Jax, obviously. As we see in the episode, Jax was about to into abstract when Pomni, Ragatha, and Abel rang his doorbell. We discovered that abstraction was actually a calm and relaxing process, as Jax was relaxing in a sort of colorful trance filled by the faces of Ribbit and Kaufmo, which led him to close his eyes and relax. So Jax's mental state was quite bad in this episode, but we also learned a lot of interesting things about him, including new clues about his relationship with Ribbit and Kaufmo, as well as a glimpse into his life before he joined the circus. Indeed, when Jax asked Zubul if anyone was waiting for them in the real world, and they asked him the same question, the atmosphere briefly became tense, and Jax seemed taken aback by the question, implying that no one was waiting for him in the real world and that he wasn't in any real hurry to leave the circus. In fact, he absolutely did not want to leave the circus. He is even seen having a panic attack just as the gang was about to escape. Memories of his past life resurface, causing him to press the red button to prevent them from leaving the circus. This shows that his past is so dark that he is afraid to leave the circus and return to the real world. During Jax's panic attack, we briefly see images of his human past. The first image shows a residential neighborhood, presumably where Jax lived. The following images show him driving a car on an isolated forest road. The darkest theory about that is that Jax was in a car accident and killed someone, probably a little girl. This would explain why his room is literally a little girl's room. Jax can't stop to think about that little girl. This is why Hour doesn't want to return to the real world. He's afraid to face the reality of his actions again. Regarding his relationship with Ribbit, when the group arrives at Kane's office, Jax stops near a globe containing a past adventure, which seems to be in a snowy area, and stares at it, as if remembering something. While he's gazing at it, muffled voices can be heard in the background, one of which is presumably Jax talking to someone. Well, at the end of the episode, in the credits, Ribbit's voice actress was revealed, meaning she had a line in this episode. The second voice we hear when Jax stares at the globe is therefore likely Ribbit's, and if you listen closely, it sounds like they're arguing.
Hey, you alright?
This means Jax and Ribbit had a fight during the snowy adventure, and it was probably their last conversation before Ribbit's abstraction. So Jax might feel responsible for Ribbit's abstraction because of their argument. Another thing I noticed, when Jax is lying on his bed and Ribbit's hands start reaching for him, you can see the word, chill, written on Ribbit's arm when you light up the image. This word had already appeared in episode 6, on the bathroom door behind Jax, during his panic attack at the end of the episode. This word seems to be connected to Jax, or even Ribbit, for some reason. It might be the last words Ribbit spoke to Jax during their argument, and the last words she ever spoke to him before she abstract. I also have a theory that it's Ribbit herself who is trying to communicate with Jax and telling him to chill out. If that's the case, it means that characters who have abstracted are still conscious and can still see what's happening at the circus. But I think the first theory is more plausible than this one. That's all I wanted to talk about concerning the episode 7 of the Amazing Digital Circus, meaning it's the end of this video. Now, we can wonder what will happen in episode 8. I imagine it will begin with the gang still shocked from the revelations, and certainly no longer trusting Kane at all. As we saw in the trailer released a week ago, we'll also have flashbacks with some characters that were abstracted. We see Queenie next to Kinger and Ribbit's shadow near Jax. Meanwhile, Kane will become more and more crazy because the circus gang doesn't like him, which will cause the entire circus to glitch. What do you think? What are your thoughts on episode 7, and what do you think will happen in episode 8?
And when the ice sets in, I'll need you.